Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
To sleep, perchance to dream, can have a whole new meaning. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain not only on current projects, but state of the industry, influences, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion, because that's just how we like to do it around here. And, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast, we hope that you do, because you're listening right now. You can do that basically wherever you find your podcasts. Amazon, Google, Spotify, Apple. It's all good. And plus, you can find every single one of our episodes archived over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. Also, we'd really appreciate it if you'd follow us on social media. If you could do that on either Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or why not all three, you can do it at either In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And finally, and most importantly, we'd really love it if you would visit us over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest movie news and reviews as we talk about the moving image in all of its forms. And we got a hardworking team, and I know they would appreciate people reading their recommendations, because that's what we do, because somebody's got to watch it all, and it's usually going to be us. But on this episode, we've got a real interesting one. We're going to be talking about the new movie, which is on VOD now, from our friends at Raven Banner here in Canada and IFC Midnight in the States. The film is called Come True, from writer-director Anthony Scott Burns, and it's about a teenage runaway who takes part in a sleep study that becomes a nightmarish descent into the depths of her own mind. And it's really a terrifying sort of examination of the power of dreams. And it's a film that's very akin to, there's a little bit of Blade Runner, but if anyone out there remembers Dreamscape or things like that, it's not about the gore, it's not about the shock value. It's the kind of horror and sci-fi movie that wants to make you think, that wants to unsettle you rather than sort of shock you. And it's a really, really interesting film, which if you are trolling around the VOD lands and you wanted something different to rent, I do highly recommend this. And we got a chance to sit down with writer-director Anthony Scott Burns to talk about the film, the inspiration, and for it all, and so very much more. It was a fun talk, so I hope you enjoy it, because I know I did. All right, well, obviously, first off, congratulations on the film, man. I really dug it.
Well, thank you.
I absolutely dug it. It totally was my vibe. Now, walk me through, I guess, maybe the inspiration for the story. Because watching it, there's a lot of stuff that I could pull from it, but I'm just kind of curious what your sort of inspiration was.
There are a number of inspirations. One of them was my own sort of dealing with sleep paralysis. And when I was 8 years old, I had a bout of sleep paralysis where, for people who don't know what that is, it's when your body, you wake up and the chemicals that, put your muscles to sleep so that you don't act out your dreams, they're still active, and therefore you're awake, but you cannot move, and you're in sort of a semi-half waking state. And that happened to me when I was 8 years old, and I saw a dark shadow sitting at the end of my bed, and my mother had just recently passed away, and I thought it was her. And it really freaked me out. But also I was sad because I couldn't talk to her because I was paralyzed. And slowly, I started to get scared of this thing, because I would see it, every other night. And I knew that if it turned around and looked at me, I'd probably die instantly. And so it was just this really scary thing. And one day it just went away, and I'd forgotten about it. Until I'd seen the documentary The Nightmare by Rodney Asher. And I realized that's what happened to me. And under that extreme stress, I guess sometimes it happens that way, is that just stress sort of triggers it. And for anyone who hasn't seen the documentary, you should go out and see it, or rent it, or if it's on Netflix, stream it. And this idea that everyone who sort of had sleep paralysis saw the same things generally. Not always, but generally. There would be these shadows with eyes. And that really struck me, that if people all share this mass hallucination, there's something to that. And so that idea, along with a study that Berkeley had done, where they were using a technology to study brainwaves and to interpret those brainwaves as images, and basically the images that we see. So there was an actual technology they were developing where this system could interpret your brainwaves, and through a sort of system of like algorithms or whatever they're developing, could create videos of what you were seeing without a camera. And that was wild to me. And so that sort of combination, and I started to think, well, what if we could see what we were dreaming? And that's sort of the impetus of the film. And then, over the years, I started to think about this idea, and eventually I thought, well, what if I make a film that is a dream? and sort of layer that together with all these ideas. And so it's a film about dreams that is a dream in itself. And
That's wild, man. And I mean,
yeah.
just as a side note, I do think The Nightmare is on Shudder for anybody listening. So
Okay,
check
great.
it out on there. I'm pretty sure it's there. But it's one of those films that I love that it was a dream inside a dream, just because I mean, in watching it, I'm like, I mean, obviously you can't have a movie about dreams take place during the day. It's got to happen at night.
Yes.
But it, like, just the style of it, and just sort of the dark and the contrast, and there was a couple of things I was picking out, just like the mild use of neon, and even something like the Terminator poster in the background. Like, was this intended to be sort of a period piece, or was it more sort of an out of time piece?
It's an out of time piece, but by its design. Sorry for the barking in the back. That's my dog, Agent Cooper. It was meant to be out of time and uncanny, because it is dealing with dreams. A lot of the things that are layered in there are meant to sort of be talisman, things you can hold on to sort of make you feel safe, and that this is a regular place, but also to weave in what I call a collective consciousness, that comes from Carl Jung's ideas that really, I don't know, the best way to describe it is I wanted to make a film that was built of all of our sort of cinematic influences and loves. And that's what the film is to me. And that's why I call it a cinematic dream, is that it's sort of built of all these loves and things that I tend to think a lot of cinephiles and filmmakers, we end up liking a lot of the same things. And for
You're
reasons
right.
we
Yeah.
don't know. And so I'm sort of trying to distill them into something fresh.
Well, and I mean, I love that, because I mean, even when I think about sort of the genre in general, it's one of those things. Like, I remember when I was younger, like, I wasn't freaked out by the guy in the hockey mask. It was the guy going into my dreams. It was Dennis Quaid and Max von Sydow sort of running through the halls. That's the stuff that really got to me. And I'm kind of curious, from your perspective, I mean, especially inside the genre, what is it about sort of playing in the psychological as opposed to playing in the sort of, oh, well, there's a creature around the door who's going to stab you and there's going to be a lot of blood kind of thing? Because this isn't that kind of movie.
Because it's in your mind.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is we have to trust our minds that they're giving us the truth. And I think that that's far scarier, to have a horror or something that can follow us into our own mind. We can't escape it then, right?
Yeah.
You can run away, you can lock the door, but you cannot change what's going on in your mind. And so if there's something within your dreams and we don't understand that yet, then there's no way to escape it. So I think that's what really drew me in.
Well, for sure. I mean, I think that's what's going to be drawing audiences in as well. And I mean, especially with a film like this, you've got to have the right ensemble and the right cast. And I've been a big fan of Julia for a while now, and she really does fit the part quite well. And I'm just kind of curious, like, walk me through like how much casting you had to do, because I mean, on a movie like this, if people don't get it, it's not going to work. The cast has to be completely understanding of sort of the vision that you're putting out there.
Yeah. Well, I had seen Julia in The Killing, and when we got around to casting the film, I didn't even read Julia because I knew how great she had been. And I sent her the script, and she got it. She understood it. She understood who Sarah was. And, you know, in the script, we go into a lot more detail into sort of what's happening behind the scenes for Sarah as well. And so she got it. And I didn't really have to take the actors on too much of a journey, really, because, like I said, we wrote a lot into the script, but also the way we shot this film, we had a lot of time to work together on set. And that was the other thing. So that if there was something that was sort of missing, or we didn't really get the scene the way we wanted to, we had time to work through it, because we had built this as a production to be really lean.
Yeah.
But by lean, I mean we had 5 people on set. And so that way we would have, you know, we shot for 60 days, which is sort of unheard of in low budget horror films now. And that allowed for takes, and it allowed for conversation, and it allowed to work in the space and really get things right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one of those things, like you say, it's one you don't necessarily get to have it. And I mean, I guess that kind of dovetails into my next question, because I mean, on a film like this, like you say, it's you're gonna have a small, group of people on set, but at the same time, you're crafting a world that, I mean, it's very visually dark, but at the same time, you need to sort of manipulate the light the way you need to it. I mean, can you walk me through sort of the technical challenges of basically sort of shooting a movie in the middle of the dark?
So are you referring to nightmares or during the day? So
I would say more of the nightmares and night sequences. Yeah.
Okay. So the nightmares themselves are fully CG, and therefore, what we did is we did a lot of research and development. I had a great team with me of friends. So I have friends who helped me create a lot of the assets and the designs and stuff. And then I would go in and sort of spend a lot of time lighting them in the digital universe. And that was really important to us, that the dreams have a particular quality that, something uncanny was the best way we could describe it, where it doesn't take place in reality, but it also doesn't feel fake in CG. And that's sort of a weird sort of tightrope, but that was where we were sort of heading. And the lighting really came from my love of Alice in Wonderland, the Disney, and how they use light to focus attention, and darkness for like how, the environment falls off into darkness. And that really, really felt like dreams to me, because I don't think in my dreams I've ever had more than what was in front of me. It really feels that way anyways. And so using that as a sort of a benchmark, we spent months developing the look. And so it wasn't difficult to do digitally, because we could place the lights wherever we wanted and you wouldn't see them. Now, if we had to do that in live action, it would be very hard. And in the live action stuff, we had very tiny LED lights. And that's part of the beauty of modern technology, is that the sensors are more forgiving, and they let in a lot more light. And so you can shoot in very low light conditions and use very tiny little lights to, again, focus attention. And so it's a product, but cinematography is a product of modern cameras being able to capture what was necessary in a way that probably couldn't have been done on film in the past.
Well, and I mean, that serves as a reminder too, just that, especially on low budget shoots, you can do CGI, because I mean, I was figuring and watching the film, I'm like, okay, some of this is going to be CGI, but there's not that much. But it never felt like it. It always felt very organic, and it felt very part of the universe that you were building. And I mean, I'm just curious, because this is a trap that, like, filmmakers on smaller budgets can like sort of get into, in terms of trying to have that one big effect shot or do that. And this film doesn't do that. And how do you sort of navigate sort of the desire to sort of make things trippy and weird through effects, but also sort of making sure that, no, I've got to trust the actors, and I got to trust the score, just to sort of make the right balance and the marriage together?
That was a tough question. I don't know. It's instinct.
Well, that's fair, because I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. You'll see
Yeah.
like a low budget shoot, and then you'll see like one visual effect shot that completely takes you out of the film.
Yeah, I think it's I came up through visual effects and design, and so I've sort of made a career around trying to figure out what the sort of best use of time, because I used to talk about this a lot when I was younger, is that a big giant explosion in a low budget film doesn't really do as much as an arrow to the head. Like
Right. Yeah,
really,
exactly.
really, really effective visual effects and usage can do way more emotionally for the movie than trying to do these giant, you know, hit it out of the park VFX, which you can't. Listen, guys, we can't compete with giant studios.
Well,
Some
that's
people
just it.
can
Yeah.
get, yeah, some people can get there almost. Some people can get there all the way, but then it's. I mean, they've killed themselves to get that shot, and maybe sometimes it works for the film, but like you're saying, most times it doesn't. And so it's about trying to figure out what's interesting, because
Yeah.
interesting is always more evocative than, like I say, an explosion. And a realistic explosion is really hard to do. So why not try and do something interesting as opposed to a big simulation or something like that? So yeah, but the instinct, it comes from years of screwing up. So it doesn't just all of a sudden happen. So
No, but I love how you mentioned about focusing on sort of those interesting moments. And I mean, this is a bit of a loaded question, but it's always something I like to ask.
sure.
Like thinking back, was there for you in your life, was there a movie or like a moment that was sort of the pivot point for you to go, okay, I got to get into this business. I want to do this.
Um,
Like, what was your first sort of interesting cinematic moment that you witnessed?
well, it's kind of cheesy,
Do it. Come on.
but
Own it. Come
I would
on,
say
man.
because I was quite young when I saw it, Jaws really affected me, and I became really infected with this idea of doing a Jaws sequel when I was young. Like I'm talking five. And my dad worked in movies. So I spent my elementary school years in Vancouver, and my dad worked in movies, and he was the military advisor on films like First Blood and TV shows like Airwolf.
Oh,
And so
nice.
I got to go on those sets, and I think just seeing the methodology of how things were created, coupled with, like I said, we had a sort of military based family, if you want to say that. And I was in cadets. I loved the camaraderie that I saw on set, and it just seemed like a really fun thing to do. And then, so when we moved away from Vancouver, it never left me. And I found myself, as soon as I could afford a video camera of any sort, getting the cheapest, ugliest video camera there was and just going out there and doing it. But Jaws was the thing that sort of made me want to go out there and make movies. And then second to that was, again, sounds kind of, unartistic to some, but Tim Burton's Batman was the other one that I saw in the theater. And I realized that you could make a world that was so different from this one and still have people treat it, dramatically as seriously as if it were, any other drama. Like I saw people really getting into it, and that really excited me. So the combination of Jaws and Tim Burton's Batman really made me want to make movies.
Oh, you know what, man? Those aren't cheesy answers at all, man. I love those because I think you're absolutely right. And I mean, this film has some of that too because it's creating a world, and we're getting sort of dropped into this ethereal, messy nightmare that these people are
Yeah.
on.
It's if Tim Burton is quirky nightmare, then then I guess I'm like dystopian nightmare.
Now, I mean, like I've got to ask because I absolutely love the music. Like, how important was it for you to sort of because I think that synth score kind of adds a different layer when you're making a movie like this as opposed to something maybe a little more traditional. It makes it feel, it gives it that otherworldly feel.
Yes, and especially since it isn't just a 1980s synth score. It's
Exactly.
sort of it's a modern take on all of those soundscapes. Uh, Music's hugely important. Not to undermine everybody who worked on this movie, but I think that music is 80% of the mood of the film. Um, I mean, look at all the films we grew up loving. Music is so much a part of our memory of those films.
Mhm.
And so I think it's really, really important. So in working with Electric Youth to develop the songs and some of the cues, and myself working on the cues. It was always part of the movie. And in fact, Electric Youth had written some cues before the movie started. I had written some cues, and with the remix that I did of Modern Fears, it was something that we played on set a lot and played for the actors, and we made playlists, and the actors made playlists for me to listen to. And it was a great collaboration, and music was always a part of the mood, and the music was consistent. The style of the music was always consistent of we always knew where we were heading, which was just like the movie itself, a little bit of the past and a little bit of the present, and sort of mixed all together into something that's new and fresh.
All right, just to put a bow on this, because this film, at least to me, it's very much a film that is designed and catering towards the cinephile, the people who know what you're doing and will appreciate it and sort of really get into it and sort of absorb it and sort of go along with it. But I'm curious to hear from your perspective. How would you pitch this movie to maybe the casual cinema goer who would not quite understand sort of a lot of the stuff that you're doing on screen?
Well, my hope is that it wouldn't matter. I've tried to make something that is so, entertaining on its own, and invites. If you look at the structure of the film, it starts traditionally and slowly becomes experimental. And I think that's part of, us, as filmmakers and producers wanting to invite people into independent and experimental cinema. And so we tried to make something that was housed in as much of a traditional plot as possible. So I guess for me, the pitch of the movie is, if you want to feel the emotion of fear and being scared of something, then come to the theater or rent this movie. Like it's designed to be the magic trick of dread. The ultimate magic trick is we present you dread, and I think that can be felt and experienced by pretty much anyone. And as long as you're open to a different kind of movie, I think you won't be disappointed.
And I think you're right, man. You're right.
I was going to say that's the thing about movies that cinephiles love. They're not exclusive. It's just people don't really know about them, and we're lucky in that now this movie is getting a wide release, and we feel blessed by that, because it is something that it could be seen as more niche, but like I said, the design is one of inclusion and inviting people to come and see a weird movie.
And you're right. I mean, there is this lure that, the story is luring us in. It's like, we're going to scare the pants off you. Come walk through this door with us and see if we can do it. It's like, it almost feels like a dare in many ways. Like, to me, it feels like a very bold and like very entertaining kind of dare to go, we're going to scare the crap out of you. Come follow us down this rabbit hole and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you get some other messages along the way, then it's a bonus, because there's, like I said, there's not only am I trying to, write a love letter to films that I grew up with, but I'm also examining the tropes of those films.
Absolutely.
Right up until the very end of the film, we're examining the tropes of these kinds of movies. And so I hope that people will enjoy that.
You know what? I think people will, and then some. And thank you for the time today, man. This was a pleasure.
My pleasure, man.
Congratulations again on the movie.
Oh, thank you very much, David.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.